I'm going to make one more attempt to try to explain this in a manner that everybody can identify with. The left and big tech are basically one and the same, at least was at this point. The majority of people who work for the big tech industries are leftists or left leaning. Take a moment to let that sink in. Because I'm making garlic bread because it's the middle of the night, nobody comes to my live stream, so what the hell. But I'll be back. Cheese on there, Harley. We'll get down to the nitty gritty here in a minute. But how does it work? It's a good old boy network, basically. And if you want to be one of the good old boys and succeed, you have to be down for what the good old boys are doing. Preferably, you have to be doing what they're doing. That way, they got something on you, and you'll stay loyal and faithful. I'm positive that's how this works, and I'm also positive that before they'll let all this come out, they're going to jerk the plug on the whole thing, at least was on the internet side of things. Because some of the stuff these people are into, they don't never want you to know. And that's why they do a lot of the things that they do. Because the closer free speech and freedom gets to their world, the more dangerous it is for them. Hang on, I'll be back. What are you barking at? Look at that. Doesn't that just look delicious? Okay. Now, I don't know if any of you remember, but a while back, Hillary gave a speech in front of Congress, and it was all about what she called the information war. And it wasn't really this particular topic that I'm talking about now, but the way they talk, in order to sell their bullshit, they have to be able to talk about what they're up to or into on an intelligent level so that other people will believe their lies if you understand the concept. So in other words, when they talk about collusion and the things that they accuse Donald Trump of doing, quite literally speaking from experience because they've done those things themselves. It's the only way to properly sell a lie. If you're going to sell a lie to the American public or to anybody, you have to believe it, or the other person ain't going to believe it. And I swear on my doggy's life, that's how they do it. And they have been doing it that way for quite some time. So let me get back to when Hillary spoke in front of Congress. Her exact words were, "We're in the middle of an information war, and we're losing." Somewhere shortly after that, the left got involved with big tech. I'm not sure exactly when Microsoft, Facebook, Google, Bill Gates, all the executives and stuff, they started meeting at the White House. But I know for a fact that they did on a semi-annual basis. And it was all about everything that's going on today. Had Hillary gotten elected, what you're seeing now would have been times 10. They would have already effectively shut down the right. And when people took to the streets or violence broke out or what have you, they would have used their platforms to persuade the American public or nudge the American public the way that they wanted them to go. They're doing it now on a smaller scale only because the establishment in government, at least was at the top, isn't on their side anymore. It would quite literally be whole hog if Hillary would have gotten elected. That's why they're so pissed off. All of their plans are in jeopardy. That's why they made up the Russian collusion delusion. That's why they won't let it go. And now that it's all falling apart, that's why they're bringing out investigations. I understand what people think that, it's the same old game and Donald Trump had dealings with the Rothschilds and all that happy horse shit. But just because you know how their world works doesn't mean you're part of it. I can use my own life as an example of that. I know how these people roll. I know what they, at least wise their attitudes and how they try to keep their bullshit going. Because that's the world I come from. The reason I don't really worry about appearances and all that too much is because that's what they do. And I don't want to be anything like them people. I don't know how to explain this. Well, I guess I did the other night. Bullshit. During the Obama administration, when they had their little big tech meetings at the White House, that should have never been allowed to happen. The government and big tech should never, ever, ever been allowed to collude. Because unfortunately, well, unless you have the right people in office, it becomes all about power and all about control. And that's exactly what goes on nowadays. But what got us here is the fact that good people are good people. they're willing to put up with this and willing to put up with that and not say anything about it. This could all be over in a very short amount of time if people were collectively just willing to speak up about it. Because one thing I know for a fact about these people is they're gutless. They do stuff, but are never ever prepared to pay the consequences for the things that they do. That's why all of this goes on, because there's consequences to pay, and come hell or high water, they don't want to pay them just because that was their plan, their idea. Oh, now I gotta be able to see. I'm talking to the world, sweetie. Nobody's gonna listen, but at least I can throw my 2 cents in. Because we're getting down to the nitty gritty here. They're gonna unplug the whole damn thing before they let their bullshit out in the world. So instead of making a video, I decided to do it in a live stream. Well, I'm talking about what the title is. Big Tech Collusion with the Democrats and the left. You want to call it, well, you can call it the Illuminati, the deep state, whatever you like. But that's what goes on. There's a reason why I don't get that many views and I don't get subscribers and all that. When I've been at this for so long, I got a video list longer than most people. It's because I talk about shit they don't want to hear about. They don't want the rest of the world to know about. So they screw with my channel and make me lose subscribers and unring the bell for other people and stupid stuff like that. So this is my response. To know about what? What have I been talking about besides shooting the sun? The corruption in the government, what goes on behind the scenes with big tech, and the fact that people aren't willing to take an active interest because if they were, if people like, well, yourself, for example, if everybody made a video like this whole house of cards would fall apart. But nobody's willing to do that. Nobody's willing to raise their voice, do something different, something outside the box of what they normally do. That's because not enough people jumped on board. If everybody did it at basically the same time, wouldn't even necessarily have to have the same message. This would all fall apart. It's falling apart anyway, but the fact that people aren't willing to take an active interest in it makes it take that much longer. It's a lot like, I've said this before, it's a lot like driving a car that you know is breaking down. It might get you to work tomorrow, it might get you to work next week, but eventually that sucker's going to break down. And the breakdown in this case is everything coming out that's been going on behind the scenes. Like I said at the beginning of this, it's one big good old boy network, and the good old boys are into stuff that most people don't want to know about. They don't want to hear about it because it offends their sensibilities. Well, to the other side, to them, that makes them think it's okay. Like I said this earlier, I know how this works because I come from that world. I know how these people think because that's how I grew up. Everybody, it just has to be the majority. And if they keep picking people off one by one, it's it makes it that much more difficult for the truth to come out. I said this a long time ago, and this is damn true. And you actually through the things that you've researched could totally agree with this. The truth can only be suppressed. It can never be stomped out. You can contain the truth, but eventually pieces of it gets out, and that always leads back to the original thing. What they're trying to do, quite literally, in the run, won't work. But a lot of people are going to suffer in the meantime because no one's willing to take an active interest, of no less an active part. If you live next to a family and you heard, well, that's because nobody said nothing, and you heard somebody crying every night, would you just close your windows and pretend you didn't hear anything? Or would you take an active interest and take action? That's where we're at right now. Yeah, that's exactly where we're at. No, and unless I've touched on this before, unless people are willing to say, "Hey, what the hell goes on here?" Nothing's gonna get done. It's just like this Russian bullshit with Trump. Now that it's all falling apart, they're moving on to a whole new set of stuff. They don't care. I remember when it first started, all the Democrats saying that, well, we'll go with what Mueller says and all that. And now that it doesn't look like it's going their way, what they said don't mean a damn thing. That's what frustrates me so much. That's why I unsubscribed from Mookie's channel. That's why I left Duck behind. That's why I don't subscribe to Groot's channel anymore, or however the hell you pronounce it. Because they're not willing to see the writing on the wall. They think it's like Richie from Boston does when it's fairly obvious that's not how this works. It might have been how it did work, but it ain't how it works today. Or they never would have got rid of the mandated part of Obamacare. The industry wouldn't have been allowed to come back into the United States. Coal, coal burning power plants would still be shut down. And I'm not prepared to argue with people who are dead wrong, who will never admit they're dead wrong. So I unsubscribed and went on my merry way. In my opinion, that attitude only helps the evil to grow. And let's say there is such a thing as judgment. What would say like you got to sit across the table from Jesus, and he starts talking about what really goes on behind the scenes here, the horrible things that happen to people and stuff like that. And Jesus said, "Well, why did you look the other way?" What are they going to say? Because Richie from Boston told me to, or because the guy from High Impact said there's no difference between one side of the coin and the other? I don't think that's going to work very well. If I get asked that question, I want to be able to say, hey, I did what I could. I tried to wake up who I could, and unfortunately, it didn't take, or the system was stacked just so, and I wasn't allowed. Man, this stuff is just so good. But that's what frustrates me so. I won't even get into old Donald coming on one day talking about my ideas that I talked to him about point blank, and then saying more people should listen to him because he's been right all along. That outright pissed me off. If I'd have been 3 blocks from his house, I'd have went and lit his ass up. Because that was bullshit. He's been wrong all along, and he freaking knows it. Yeah, well, that's one of the problems with society. For the most part, and I'm sure you can agree with this, everybody tries to be a chameleon. Who they really are is very hard to get to because people will jump back and forth with their beliefs and opinions to try to stick with what's popular, even if that isn't actually what they believe. Well, as far as that goes, well, I don't know if you know this, but YouTube hired, man, I don't even forget what the amount was, 2,500 or 3,000 people from the Southern Poverty Law Center, which is one of the biggest leftist organizations in the country. And seeing as how Hillary didn't get elected, most of them are operating on a rogue system. That's why channels get squelched down way harder than others because they're kind of running on their own thing. If Hillary would have gotten elected, we wouldn't even be having this conversation. It would have already been a done deal. Whether or not it would have worked out like they thought, that's a whole nother deal. But they had their plan, and then she was the one to enact it. It's really not that complicated. It not for me. It's not because, like I said, I grew up in that world. Oh well, she was selected. Even Obama even said so. She's the only one that could do the job. He was talking about the destruction of this country. No, I don't believe that. Like I said, you wouldn't have all the jobs coming back. He wouldn't have got rid of the mandated participation in Obamacare, the coal burning factories would and power plants would still be shut down. They wouldn't have reversed as many things as he'd reversed, and they damn sure wouldn't be trying to deal with the border. Because the border was a key part of their plan. Well, even media that's wholeheartedly against Trump, still says the job numbers are going up, still says the economic indicators are going up, and there's been more growth under Trump than Obama ever had. So I've dealt with people in the shop for years and years that could talk a good game, but when it came time to sling the wrench and get the job done, they it was all bullshit. So I have to go by the work, and the body of work says that he ain't like the rest of them, and that's why they're so against him. If it was the same old game, do you think they'd cooked up this Russian bullshit? I don't think so. But now you're bringing off a topic. Harley, you want to go outside? Hang on a second. Well, we got a quarter-inch ice on the ground and 3 inches of snow on top of that. Well, if you're going to keep thinking like that, then we're going to lose. Need to listen to Accept Balls to the Wall and read the lyrics because it's a really good insight on what the people with talent know about this. Because I experienced this myself in the military. They love talent because they don't have any. All they have is their stupid plan. So once you nope, I'm telling you, sweetie, you're wrong. It was that way up until 2016. And that's the only reason why I keep making videos. Because it's going to come out, it's going to eventually, unless they find a reason to take down all my content, eventually this is all going to play out. And if God forbid somebody actually watches my videos after the fact, you're going to say, damn, this guy was right about this shit all along. That's why they won't let me out of the box. I know people who talk about the same things that I talk about that have thousands and thousands of subscribers until they get a little bit too far over the edge and then they get yanked off. All I can do is go by personal experience, and I have dealt with these people before. It's why I didn't have a career in the military. Now that I think about it and know what I know, I'm lucky I got out of that shit with my life. When they said they were going to seal my record, I wondered why at the time. Now it is all these years later. I know why. And I know why they put the bullshit in there that's in there because that ain't what really happened. It's because I've met the deep state. I could have been one of them. I walked away from a whole life that could have been everything I ever wanted because I wasn't willing to do what they do. I outright said, "You assholes are crazy." And I took my beat down and I got the hell out of there. Well, he wouldn't. If he'd have been what he claims to be, he wouldn't talk like he does. That's my biggest thing. My biggest problem with Richie. He claims to have been what could have been a top soldier. A top soldier never gives up on his country, and he definitely doesn't abandon the belief in the Constitution. That's a whole nother part of their plan is to demonize the the military, at least wise the vets, so that the country would look at them, would change the whole view as to how they looked at the military like they did during Vietnam. The whole country, at least wise on the left, was just hating on the military, and that's what they were going for then. This is all rehashing, if you look at it, of old ideas. The censorship that you see now was the book burning that was back then. The protests against this, that, and the other thing are to try and demonize people who have been or in the military that believe in the Constitution. They laid all this shit out right before I was made the offer, and I said, What really got my attention is when I was told, oh, even by a full bird colonel, we do things that are so outrageous that no one would ever believe it. And I'll be damned, they do. And it shows, it's written all over the way that they're running the media nowadays, the way they're running big tech. Ain't no joke. They never thought she would lose. That's what Q said, and that's damn true. Because all their bullshit was all set into place. All they needed to do was get her in there. But we looked out, and the American public showed up in such big numbers that even their shot at election theft didn't work. This is all. That's actually why I'm doing this live stream. It's all on the verge of coming out, and unless people are at least half informed or understand what's going on or have a working knowledge of how this works, it, we might not come out of this so good on the other side. Well, I'm a little bit disappointed that you're so close-minded about it. If that's the case, then might as well just roll over right now, which is something I'll never do. I would be more than happy and consider my life a success if I die in defense of somebody else. It sounds kind of stupid, but it's. I was told by somebody a long time ago that I really respect that really woke me up to get away from that shit is that there is no higher honor in this universe than to die in defense of the innocent. And those are the most powerful words I've ever heard in my life. And I firmly do believe that. That's why I haven't give up. That's why I haven't walked away. I will admit to being quite frustrated over all of this. But there's innocent people, and especially children, still suffering to this day because the good people aren't willing to take a stand, and aren't willing to put their foot down and say, that's enough of this shit. I I hear you. Nobody came. I had to take all that shit myself. What amounted to horrible beatings, emotionally and physically. But I would not, I reflect those feelings onto somebody else, even if that's what happened to them. And that's what we're dealing with now is a bunch of abused people that feel like it's their turn. Yeah, I took a lot of what I did because one day my sister looked right at me and she said, if you ever tell about any of the stuff that goes on here, I'm going to kill your dog. Well, my dog was my best friend. I wasn't going to let that happen. So I took it. That's why I'm so close with my pets. It's something left over from those times. But there are some people that, like, they go the other way, and you've met them. They're mean because they were someone was mean to them. It works the same way with dogs as it does with people. Sometimes they break and it just plain makes them mean, and that's all there is to it, or just makes them think that they can control other people. But you should. I look at it this way, but it isn't quite so heartbreaking when I realize or I think about it when that I did break to it, that I didn't become one of those kind of people. So if you look at it that way, you win. But what we're dealing with, and I get back to the reason why I was doing this live stream, is that even though we beat that part of our upbringing or got walked away from the abuse or whatever, it could still happen again because they're trying it from the other side of things now. The only thing that worked for me was to finally one day say, that's enough of this shit. And I did what you just a minute ago. I walked away. I don't have anything to do with my people. I haven't talked to anyone in my family for going on 5 years now. And it was hit and miss at best before that. But I think I would have been better off had I exposed everything that they were into. I pretty sure I couldn't prove it for certain, but the majority of my subscribers are family members waiting for me to say what they don't want me to say. There's some ugly shit, man. Real ugly shit. But speaking from experience, nobody wants to admit to having lived that kind of life. It comes back to what I was saying earlier about people. They want to be Oh, I never went through nothing like that. I'm just like you. Everything was all happy and good, even when it wasn't. Yeah, and that's why I said a long time ago that negative has ruled the day for a long, long time. What if we actually have a chance to correct that, and the people who want out of that look? That's why I don't call it good or evil. I call it positive and negative. Because if you throw out all the religious beliefs and all the bullshit that we're supposed to believe in, all you're left with is positive and negative. And it's everywhere. It's in everything. Even that book that some people are so willing to throw on every day. It's all good. Nobody was trying to deceive anybody the whole time they were writing that. I don't know about that. From my experience, what I've seen, it's there's positive and negative in everything. Well, if nobody ever, and if nobody ever apologized for the things that you went through, I'll apologize for them. You didn't deserve any of that shit. Nobody deserves to be put down. Nobody deserves to be abused. Nobody deserves to be thought of less than a human being, whether they're on the right, left, or in the middle. You know, I don't necessarily hate the people that are trying to control us, but I do hate the things that some of them at the top do. If that makes any sense. No, people get horrible. I've experienced that myself. I've said this on more than one occasion, and you've heard me say it. It's, I love you in the morning and I beat you in the evening. That ain't love. That's anything but. And then to have people have the audacity to say, "Well, you'd forgive me. You'd forgive me if you loved me." Well, if you loved me, you wouldn't abuse me. But for some people, they break to it, and they that's how it's supposed to be. And I swear that's what we're dealing with. But I hope to God I'm right. I really do, because I'm gonna really be pissed off that I wasted all my time thinking in here doing this bullshit. I would have left YouTube a long time ago if I thought I was wrong about this. Because I don't care for this at all. I'll be honest with you. I don't. This is bullshit. It's so frustrating. I go back to what I did before, build whatever. I'm a lot happier out in the shop than trying to do all this shit. It's way more satisfying to fix somebody's car and make a couple of bucks than to keep talking about the same shit and not have any results. At least in the shop, I can get results. Whether it be building a Hot Wheels track that nobody would ever consider doing themselves, or rescuing a dog that everybody said put her away. He ain't worth the time. I mean, that's a lot more satisfying than this little adventure is. That's for sure. I was on the verge, quite literally, of deleting all my content a while ago. To hell with it. But that's what they want, and I ain't doing what they want. She's doing all right. I haven't seen too many of the children, but they were getting big enough to be out on their own, and so we'll see. I don't. It's a jungle out there, basically. I did what I could for them. I gave them food and let them live in the shop and poop under my porch, and that's what do you want me to do? Harley sure in the hell ain't gonna let them live in the house. And if things go to shit, say like you get the shit hit the fan situation, and society falls apart. That's basically all I'm going to be able to do for anybody, is try to lend them a helping hand and go on my way. Because what I've learned, and I said this the other night, I put in the description, my YouTube experience has taught me that people are not that concerned about their survival. They're not that concerned about whether or not their loved ones make it through a hard situation. It's all just hearsay and entertainment to them, even though the signs are there. I mean, come on, thousands of dead fish showing up here and there, superstorms never seen before, things showing up in the sky that we've never seen ever, and yet everybody's still just walking around in their little daze. And the same applies to what's going on the control side of the government and stuff. It's basically all the same shit. As above, so below. That's how it goes. It's super obvious to me too. Well, that's the training. That's the training for the world. That's the only thing. And then this was one of my mother's biggest thing. Why don't you have a regular job? Why don't you do this? Why don't you do that? This is what other people do. It's what you should do. Well, congratulations, somebody who can get up and go to work every day, but not know how to do a damn thing except for that. That's piss poor life planning in my book. I'm best suited for everything to go to shit. There ain't nothing I couldn't do in that world. On my own, by myself, and so forth and so on. This bullshit, it's bullshit. Oh yeah, that's people think they're successful just because they got money in the bank, and I would much rather live a life of being relatively poor and not having some of the things that other people have, and know that I can do the things that I can do. I can drive a nail, swing a wrench. I can do it, and I know I can. That's one of my biggest fallback things. Whatever comes up, I got it. It's always been that way. That's why I took on looking after the old guy, and he did as far as he did. It was kind of sad the way things turned out, but me and him sat down. We had a talk. Oh, this is about 2 weeks ago now. He outright said he didn't want to get cut open again. He didn't want to go back in the hospital, and he didn't want to die in the nursing home. And that was a hard conversation to have. So I said, all right, do what we can. He made it about 2 weeks, well, about a week and a half after we had that conversation, and now he's gone. But he went on his terms. That's what he wanted. Was it the easiest way to go? Hell no, man. I don't want to do that shit. I want to do that shit again. That was hard. I didn't want to talk about it. It made me cry. Because that shit was hard, man. Holy shit. No, it's once once he realized, or I explained to him that either he was going to die in the hospital or the nursing home, or it wasn't okay. Because he was scared. He even asked me. He asked me point blank, just shoot me. I was like, man, I can't do that. He asked me more than once. That's why I said that. Man, I've done some hard things in my life, but that takes the cake, man. To have to deal with that every day. Oh man, it was wearing on me too. It shows in some of my videos and some of the things I talked about. No, yeah, he 2 days before he went, he's like, "Well, just give me the gun." I said, "I can't do that either." I says, "I'll call the ambulance if you want." "Oh, nope, nope, they're not cutting me open again." So all I could do was try to keep him comfortable and be with him and all that, and that's what I did. I mean, I sat in there for hours the night before he passed, just sitting in there holding his hand, basically. I almost broke a couple of times, and because it'd have been a hell of a lot easier. It would have been a hell of a lot easier just to call the ambulance and let somebody else watch him die. But I made a promise. And I don't like to break my promises. Like I said, I didn't. It's hard to. I don't want to talk about that shit. Well, like I said, I've done a lot of hard things in my life, but that takes the cake. And having to have that conversation with him was that was the hardest thing because I had to say everything to him that nobody wants to hear at that point. And I couldn't lie to him. I couldn't. I mean, it's just I couldn't. And that's like I said. In a way, that's why I keep going with this. I'm not out to bullshit anybody, and I definitely ain't in this some popularity contest like some people are. And I'm not in it to talk about stupid shit. Well, that's not my people do it. They would. My grandfather, when he died, they bullshitted him right up to the very end, and they even had me fall into it too because I told him that everybody understood that what he was trying to teach everyone, and it was okay to go, and I knew that was a bunch of bullshit. That's why when it came time to have the talk with Helmet, I didn't lie to him about nothing. And he cried, and we held hands, and he put his head on my shoulder, and like I said, that was some hard shit, man. Wow. Oy, oy, oy. Well, I've never had people have criticized my bedside manner on more than one occasion, but it's definitely improved some now. Because, like I said, I talked straight to him. I wasn't condescending or anything like that. Like I said, what I told him point blank, I says, if you want to get cut open again, more than likely you're going to either die in the hospital or die in the nursing home, or if you want to go here, then that's how we'll do it. Yeah, well, now I'm actually have to reconsider the way that I do things. I don't know if I want to make that kind of commitment to anybody now. That shit scares me now. Dude, I was on my own before all this came up, anyways. I mean, it's a lot easier just to be committed to keeping the dog going than to have to keep even a group of people going or whatever. That's why when Duck pulled his bullshit, I was like, man, that's the end of this last resort shit. I ain't doing that. I'm not going to be undermined or second guessed by somebody who's just only talking shit to talk shit. Same thing actually goes for when I had my dealings with Brian. If he'd have talked to me face to face the way that he talks to his subscribers and his views on the way things are, I quite literally knock him on his ass. You don't tell people it's hopeless. You don't tell people that things can't be done. You don't promote that. That helps the other side. That helps the negative. So that was the end of that shit. And I've been on the realization for a long time that I'm a little on the empathic side, but I will never ever encourage anybody else to explore that ever again. That's up to them to find on their own. Because I can feel it in other people. It's really weird. I don't even really want to get into that. I never really talk about that too much because people start looking at you funny or whatever, and I never talk about it here. That's more opinions from somebody else. That's Wayne Steiger talking. Like I said, this journey, if you're gonna make this journey right, you come to your own conclusions of your own free will. That's what free will is all about. That's what irritates the shit out of me about people who think Richie from Boston is the end all be all of government commentators. And same with High Impact. Same with Steiger. You should making your own decisions along the way and not going by what somebody else says. You might end up with the same conclusion that somebody else has, but at least you're not going by their words. You come up to with that on your own. There's a. Have you ever been through the Emerald Tablets? There's a huge section in there about that, about free will and your individual fire and how it's up to each individual to find that on their own, or they're never going to really be able to raise their level of consciousness to the level that they could. I've been through them. I've listened to them audio version probably 5 6 times. Have I fell asleep in the middle of it and all that kind of stuff? Yeah, I have, but I've been through them quite a few times. And I don't even take all of that as gospel. It's just more information. And you turn it like a jigsaw puzzle. Okay, that fits. Oh, that didn't work. But that's the most accurate. Well, I don't know what accurate. The most reasonable interpretation of the human condition that I've ran across. Just like the thing on the roof of the temple in Iraq about Nibiru, the ultimate power or the ultimate ruler over positive and negative. Whatever side wins out on its passing is either means ascension or destruction. If that don't fit the times we're in, man, I don't know what does. Because there's definitely a war on between positive and negative, or so it would appear. Is that how it is? Nah, I couldn't say certain, but that's how it looks. I mean, there's a lot of times I can't tell for sure the ball joint's going out on the old Pontiac, but that's how it looks. Well, that's why I always say there's positive, negative, and everything. Well, we'll never get to the concept of the whole world understanding what love is. Not even a single puff of marijuana was involved. I'd go on all night long if I had a buzz on. Yeah, it probably won't last. Like I said, we're in the middle of a freaking snowstorm here, and my Wi-Fi signal ain't that good. It's up right now, but it doesn't mean it'll stay that way. I don't know. I'm gonna think positively and start working on the Z this week. I hope by next weekend the majority of the snow will be gone and I can get that thing out of the shop. Yeah, they're talking about middle 50s by the middle of the week, and it's got to break here eventually. We should be normal for us is middle 40s this time of year, and we're just now breaking out of 30s. I'm hoping this is the last snow and ice storm. All right, well, I think I covered everything I wanted to cover and maybe even a little bit more. I was only going to do this for about 20 minutes. But you got me running my mouth. But you didn't squeeze any good stories out of me. I'm still saving them for later. All right, I'll give you one. The most intense argument I never had. The old man had a fucked up temper when he was a kid, and it caused a lot of stress in the house. But he had this thing about the dog missing birds when we'd go pheasant hunting. And the dog was never professionally trained, so she'd get really excited when she first got out of the truck, and she'd inevitably miss a bird and kick it up by on our own or whatever. And he'd get so mad that he'd point the gun at the dog and threaten to shoot the dog. Well, after my sister threatened to kill my dog if I ever told what went on, one day that happened, and he's pointing the dog at my gun at or pointing the gun at my dog's head, threatening to shoot her. And I had quite literally had my shotgun cocked. And if he would have shot my dog, I'd have blew his ass away. That's an argument that never happened because I think he realized that he better not do that because man, I'm telling you, he would have died that day. There's a story. And we had more than one dog that went out hunting and never come back. Well, his temper would get the best of him. Oh, that's yeah, I got way worse stories than that, but yeah, yeah. It's a hard day when you get thrown down on the floor and you gotta come up with a bloody nose, and somebody who loves you says, "So what? You're bleeding," and means it. That's a tough one right there. Well, I didn't say they were all likable, that's for sure. All right, well, thanks for stopping, pulling me off topic. Take care, sweetie.